Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. Welcome to our Remembrance Day meeting for the Rotary Club of Barrie, and a special welcome to our visiting Rotarians and special guests. Things go better when you are here. Please remain standing after the anthem, as well as a reminder for COVID, we are not allowed to sing. So, Zoomers, feel free to sing in your own homes. Dave? Please take your seats. Peter, may I ask you to come up to introduce guests?
Thank you, President Deb. Fellow Rotarians and guests, the following are here with us today. If there's any on Zoom, please feel free to let us know. But guest Karen Tish, from a guest of David Tish, Lieutenant Colonel Meehan, Commander of Gray and Simcoe Foresters, Honorary Colonel, Lieutenant Colonel Al Jones, both guests of the club. Thank you for being here on such short notice. Sarah Pavlik, guest of Ian Pavlik. Sorry, I forgot to tell you to stand when you're there. My apologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Our beacon editor today is Jonathan. Any announcements, please forward them to Jonathan. He's got a busy beacon to keep track of today, so any help that way would be appreciated. And thank you, Aaron, for our beacon last week. You did a great job. We have a veteran story, a Remembrance Day paratrooper, World War II. Dave?
My name is Lord Tudhope, and I served in the Second World War with the 1st Canadian Parachute Battalion, which was attached to the 6th Airborne Division in Britain. I joined the forces in January of 1944 at the Horse Palace in Toronto. It just seemed to be the right thing. Your patriotic duty, as they called it. And I volunteered for the paratroops and took my jump training in Shiloh, Manitoba. From there we went to Halifax. I got on a boat, spent a couple of months in England getting ready to go over the Rhine. That was one of the biggest events of the Second World War, I guess, and it was the final push towards the end. Always nerve-wracking, and but we were ready to jump. We jumped in training quite a bit, so it kind of came naturally. But anytime you go into a battle like that, I'm sure everybody's got butterflies in their stomach. We each had a rifle. It was daylight. We dropped at about 600 feet. So you weren't long in the air, but there was a lot of firing from below. And as it happened, because of that firing, I got a little off my target and missed my drop zone. I landed in a farmer's back field on a clothesline, which was nerve-wracking a bit. By the time I got untangled on the clothesline and got my chute released, I headed for the drop area, which I made. And we went from there.
Here stands Nazi-dominated Europe at the start of 1944. But in this one year, the Red Army in the East The Allies in the south and west have marched from Cassino to Faenza, from Kiev and Leningrad to Budapest and Warsaw, from Cherbourg to the Rhine.
There was a lot of heavy fire guns, big guns. They're 88s or whatever they call them. Machine guns, rifles, of course. Once I was discharged from the Army, I tried to forget most of, because it was a nerve-wracking business. Remembrance Day is important not only for us, but for the younger generation, I believe, to let them know some of the things that happened, or try and remember the things that happened during the wars. Very important for them, and of course, very important for us too, because we don't really want to remember, but we have to remember those people that gave up their lives so that we're a free country. And it means a lot. It should mean a lot to everybody.
And now we'll see a Remembrance Day Soldier's Cry.
We'll never have a future if we don't remember the past.
Talk of trouble is sent through the country, and we need an army to fight for the right. Young men enlist and are sent to the battle to fight the offender and help our allies.
Comrade is a comrade.
And the young men cry, oh Canada, we'll gladly go and fight for thee. And the young men cry, oh Canada, we'll fight to keep you free.
So I lost a brother here, so that's why it's so important.
The battle's raging, gunfire is blazing. A tired young soldier is clinging to life. He's ordered on and obeys by advancing. No hope of returning from the enemy fire.
The good ones are here, that's what you think about.
The soldier cries, oh Canada, if it must be so, I'll die for thee. And the soldier cries, oh Canada, I'll die to keep you free. And we all miss, oh Canada, the land where we all used to be. And we all long for Canada, the true north, strong and free.
The 3 PPCLI battle group will remain steadfast in our mission.
I'm gonna miss him very much. I loved him very, very much.
The king is dead. Long live the king.
Say hi, Dyer.
Rest in peace, Ainsworth. Your work is all done here.
Our spirit is not shaken, our resolve unwavering.
Seen a great danger, and yet there's a danger much greater within. The noise we make as we constantly bicker would hush not a whisper if we listen to hear.
Days like these make me proud to be a soldier.
All the thousands cry, oh Canada, is that why we have died for thee? And the soldiers cry,
know that people actually support what we're doing.
And the soldier cries, oh, candle, the true and strong for me.
Now we have our very own Dave Tish to announce our late members.
This, the Rotary Club of Barrie's Remembrance Day service, we recognize, remember, and honor our fellow Rotarians who served during the 2 World Wars to help keep our way of life and our democracy alive. As Heather Robinson states, we must remember, if we do not, the sacrifice of those 100,000 Canadian lives will be meaningless. They served and died for us, for their homes and their families and their friends, for a collection of traditions they cherished and a future they believed in. The meaning of their sacrifice rests with our collective national consciousness. Our future is their monument. We remember from World War I, Harold Henry, United States Army; Fred Sargent, Canadian Expeditionary Forces. We remember from World War II, Norm Anderson, Royal Canadian Air Force; Ted Brent, Royal Canadian Naval Volunteer Reserve; Lloyd Bristow, Royal Canadian Air Force; Bruce Brock, Royal Canadian Electrical and Mechanical Engineers; Bill Clark, Royal Canadian Naval Volunteer Reserve; Del Cole, Royal Canadian Air Force; George Frick, United States Army; John Gay, Merchant Marine. John Gay was torpedoed 3 times during the war. Eldon Greer, Royal Canadian Armored Corps; Al Hamilton, Canadian Military Engineers; Frank Hersey, Royal Canadian Corps of Signals; Joe Jewell, Royal Canadian Dental Corps; Tom Kerr, Royal Canadian Postal Corps; Bob McLaren, Royal Canadian Air Force; Al McMillan, Royal Canadian Signals Corps; Sid Mueller, Royal Canadian Dental Corps; George O'Connor, Royal Canadian Infantry Corps; Bill Oltmann, Africa Corps, German Army; Jeff Pearson, British Army; Art Powell, Royal Canadian Naval Volunteer Reserve; Lorne Power, Royal Canadian Naval Volunteer Reserve; Fred Robinson, Royal Canadian Air Force; Bob Sargent, Royal Canadian Air Force; Al Secor, Royal Canadian Infantry Corps; Ross Turnbull, Royal Canadian Army Medical Corps; Jim Beach, Royal Canadian Naval Volunteer Reserve; Jack Westman, Royal Canadian Air Force; Charlie Wilson, Royal Canadian Naval Volunteer Reserve; and John Woodstock, the Royal Canadian Air Force. These are the Rotary Club of Barrie's members who served during the 2 World Wars. We will remember. Thank you.
And I have the honor of announcing our Rotary Club of Barrie's living veterans. Peter Dean, Royal Canadian Dental Corps. Doug Jernigan, United States Air Force Veterinary Corps. Dave Tisch, Royal Canadian Dental Corps. Sebastian Asselberg, 17th Armored Infantry Division, Netherlands Armed Forces. And a special mention, past honorary colonels Peter Lorimer and Jim Williams. Betty Ann. Oh, hold on. In print, Dave Tisch, sorry.
Past District Governors present, President Debbie, honored military guests, fellow Rotarians, spouses, and friends of Rotary. As you came in, Zoomers accepted, you may have noticed a small table set for one that is off on its own. It is reserved to honor our fallen comrades in arms. This symbolizes that they are with us here in spirit. We should never forget the brave men, women, and in many cases, adolescents who answered our nation's call and serve the cause of freedom in a very special way. We should ever be mindful that the sweetness of enduring peace has always been tainted by the bitterness of personal sacrifice. We are compelled never to forget that while we enjoy our daily pleasures, there are others who have endured the agonies of pain, deprivation, and death. I would like to explain the significance of the items at the special table. The table first is round, to show our everlasting concern for our fallen comrades. The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their motives when answering the call to duty. The lit candle is reminiscent of the light of hope which lives in our hearts to illuminate their way home, away from their captors to the open arms of a grateful nation. The single red rose displayed in a vase reminds us of the life of each of the fallen comrades and the loved ones and friends of these comrades who keep the faith. The vase is tied with a red ribbon, symbol of our continued determination to remember our fallen comrades. A slice of lemon on the bread plate is to remind us of the bitter fate of those who will never return. A pinch of salt symbolizes the tears endured by the families of those who have sacrificed all. The Holy Book, which is quite poignant here because Betty Ann's uncle carried this particular Bible in the First World War and was killed at the age of 19 while carrying that Bible. It represents the strength gained through faith to sustain those lost from our country. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us at this time. The chair is empty because they are no longer with us, and the military cap reminds us that they served their country. I would ask you now, although I know this is a different time and we don't all have glasses and wine in front of us, I would ask you to stand, please, and just say the toast to the fallen comrades. We knew them, we will remember them, and they will not be forgotten. To our fallen comrades.
Thank you, Dave. You may be seated. Betty Ann.
President Deb, fellow Rotarians, I have the honor today to share in Flanders Fields, which is something very special to us at this day of remembrance. In Flanders Fields, the poppies blow between the crosses row on row that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved. and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. We will now have the act of remembrance. I will read it, and then we will follow by the commitment to remember. After each, would you please reply, we will remember them. I'll ask you to stand, please. They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. We will remember them. They were young as we are young. They served, giving freely of themselves. To them we pledge amid the winds of time to carry their torch and never forget. We will remember them. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Lorimer, may I call you up to introduce our guests and the guest speakers?
Thank you again, President Deb. Zoomers, how you doing? Perfect. My pleasure today to introduce the commander of Gray and Simcoe Foresters, commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel Dave Meehan. I will start off by saying that he is a gunner. He comes from the artillery side. So afterwards, if you have any questions, speak loudly, please. Lieutenant Colonel Meehan was born the 5th of January 1966 in Bellshill, Scotland. Immigrated to Canada in '67 and settled in the Niagara region. Lieutenant Colonel Meehan first became involved with the military in 1980 when he joined the Royal Canadian Air Cadets. For you. There he earned his glider's pilot wings and rose to the rank of Warrant Officer First Class. In '83, he joined the 56th Field Regiment Royal Canadian Artillery and has served the guns ever since. Over the years with 56 FDRCA, Lieutenant Colonel Meehan has held many positions, including detachment commander, troop commander, battery commander, adjutant, second in command, and commanding officer, commanding 56 FD Regiment, RCA, from May of 2008 to June of 2012. During his term as CO, he was able to deploy and was a key member of a technical assistant visit that supported exercise Panjshir Land, the final exercise of the Afghan National Army Junior Officer Command and Staff Course. He has completed the Officer Professional Military Education, OPME program, and the 2-year Joint Command and Staff program, JCSP. Lieutenant Colonel Meehan leads a busy life in and out of uniform. In '93, he volunteered to help build houses in St. Louis, Missouri with the Niagara Falls Fire Department following a natural disaster. As CO, he was active in strengthening ties with 6 separate Army Corps within the Niagara and Brantford regions, accumulating in their participation in exercise Cooperative Gunner 09, the premier Ontario Artillery Training concentration, in which he commanded 3 reserve artillery batteries and 1 regular reserve composite artillery battery. As CO, he worked closely with Brantford City Council in hosting the commanding officers and mayor's levy each New Year's Day, which saw over 700 members of the community visit the armory for a New Year's Day luncheon. As CO and in concert with the mayor, they created an annual New Year's Day commemorative and resolution run, enhancing existing community connections to the unit and to personal fitness. Currently, Lieutenant Colonel Meehan has been honored with command of the Grand Simcoe Foresters. He's winding down his commitment as reserve advisor at 4 Division HQ and as Deputy Director, Artillery Reserves for Canada. Through these assignments, Lieutenant Colonel Meehan oversees the annual command team course, as well as assisting and coordinating all efforts by all 19 artillery regiment units across Canada. His efforts have seen greater collaboration between units and significant training programs in support of Operation Reinforcement. Lieutenant Colonel Meehan is currently the supervisor of training with the Burlington Fire Department, where he has been employed since 1997. In the Army, beyond 56 Field Royal Canadian Artillery, he has served as CO of 32 and 31 Canadian Battle Schools, CO of 32 Combat Engineers, and several divisions and national duties. Lieutenant Colonel Meehan feels privileged to have received the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal and separately CLS commendations for his actions at a serious car accident that saved the life of a passenger who he now calls a friend. Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant Colonel David Meehan.
Sorry, it's hard taking these masks off when you've got hearing aids in, so you don't have to speak too loud. Anyways, Zoomers, thank you for having me, Madam President. Rotarians, thank you very much for inviting me to come and visit with you. So, and we had a discussion earlier, thought that I would talk about the history of the Foresters. I don't know the Foresters that well. I'm still learning. I've only been here for about a year. As you heard by the biography, I've served at many other places. But what I really wanted to focus on today is what the Foresters are doing today and over, you know, the last 10 years. So the Foresters themselves are an infantry regiment, right? So that's something very new to me of being a gunner. But it's an infantry regiment. So everything that the infantry regiments are expected to do, the Foresters do. So whether it's called IBTS, your individual battle task standards, our soldiers stand up and do that. They learn how weapons drills, they learn everything from how to march to how to use the weapons that we use. So that's just part of it. And that takes a big portion of the year. And a big part of it is confirmatory exercises. So usually Foresters show up one night a week, usually on a Thursday, and then one weekend a month. And that's for the basic infantry portion. As an aside to that, there is something called the Arctic Response Group. So the Grey and Simcoe Foresters have what's called an operational task. We have been tasked with the Arctic Response Group. So if you haven't heard of that before, there's 4 teams across Canada that have been assigned to reserve units, and we are specially prepared and trained above the infantry skills to deploy anywhere in Canada, most specifically the high Arctic. So every other year, the Foresters lead a group of usually between 110 and 150 people into the Arctic. And we do an exercise called NOREX, Northern Exercise. So we do that in the Arctic every 2 years, and every other year we do subarctic. So last year we were in a place called Greenstone, which is probably about 3 hours northeast of Thunder Bay. And we work very closely with the 3rd Canadian Ranger Patrol Group based out of Borden here, and that works with the First Nations communities, right? Tremendous relationship, tremendous working relationship with them. So this is a very significant piece because very few reserve regiments have operational tasks that we can be called upon at any time to deploy. So typically I have a recce party of reservists that are on 72 hours notice to move anywhere in Canada. And we have to have the whole company anywhere in Canada within 7 to 8 days, right? So it's pretty significant, the commitment of the Foresters here and in Owen Sound. So that kind of is what the Arctic Response Group does. With that comes a very large infrastructure. And currently right now on Base Borden, they're building a new warehouse, right? Which includes, you know, storage facilities for our 75 snowmobiles, 65 ATVs, 40 sleds, 50 super boggins, and it goes on and on and on. And it's really important to realize that these are Class A reservists by far, right? So there are some full-time, but primarily they're Class A reservists like myself. So everything that you hear, everything that we do on our off time. Okay? Otherwise, I'm at work in Burlington at the fire department Monday to Friday doing my jobs, and then I try to get up here on Thursdays and evenings and weekends when I can. So again, that's what the foresters do. So the foresters are, you know, one of 12 units in the 31st Canadian Brigade Group, right? There's 3 brigades in 4 division. That's what the green patch is for 4 div. 31, 32, and 33. So we have reserve units all over Ontario, as well as all over the country. And again, I just tie back to the importance of the foresters receiving that operational task of the Arctic Response Group. So it's a very busy unit. We have a lot of things that are ongoing. And not only do we do that, we currently have 5 soldiers serving overseas, right? So we still get called up to do operational taskings overseas as well, whether it's Latvia, Lebanon, wherever it may be. So it is a very busy unit. It's a very proud unit, and we're excited to be here and be part of the community. But I think as well, I think it's a great opportunity to hear some questions. So I'd like to open that up to the Zoomers as well. If you have any questions about my own career or the foresters, I'll do my best to answer them. And I thank you for listening.
Question at the back.
Yes.
Here. Colonel Meehan, when you say you go to the high Arctic, do other countries do that? And if they do you ever get into an exercise where you cross-train with them? And if so, how did the Grand Simcoe Foresters fare?
The foresters certainly amongst the 4 Arctic response groups across Canada is one of the best. You know, there's no actual measurement that we can have, but certainly during the COVID first outbreak, right, we had 114 to 120 soldiers sequestered to Base Borden for 90 days, prepared to deploy anywhere. And you know, perhaps I should have mentioned that earlier, so thanks for bringing it up. But we did have 90 or 114 soldiers there for 90 days prepared anywhere in Canada. Where that ties into is that we were the only group, right? So although there was 4 groups across Canada, only our group was tasked to do that mission. So we are very highly respected across the country and from the other response groups. As far as working with other countries, I don't believe we've done any of that in the Arctic. However, we have sent soldiers to train other countries in Norway with winter survival and skills. So again, we're well recognized and well known throughout the Canadian forces and overseas. Yes, sir.
Colonel Meehan, you mentioned that you have 4 of your members that are currently serving overseas. As volunteers and reservists, what has to happen for you to be asked or your team to be asked to get involved?
So certainly what happens, and this is everywhere, but what happens is the Canadian Army has decided to participate in an operation somewhere. So whether it's Latvia or Lebanon, currently right now, I think there's about 12 different missions going on around the world. I can't remember them all. There's Op Crocodile, which is in Africa, Lebanon, and Latvia, as I said. But basically what happens is the Army identifies who is going to go over. So as an example, it may be the RCR from Petawawa, which we're linked with. So they're going over. They identify that they have shortfalls or needs. That goes out to an all call to the units to say, does anybody willing to step up and fill this position? And that's how we get over. So, you know, when I went to Afghanistan, the question was, any lieutenant colonels out there who wants to go overseas to do what we do? And I basically put my hand up, and I was selected to go, and I went over and did what we do, which is teach. Actually, that's why I went, was to teach. So it's strictly a volunteer, and generally speaking, every mission has at least 25% reservists on a mission, right? So that's pretty significant across the country.
And a question on,
There's a question from Marshall Green.
you can get a Zoomer question.
Okay. Do I have to read it, or is somebody going to speak?
I'm going to announce it to you. I'm asking sort of within the confines of this room and with an entire promise of confidentiality, how you view the much more limited role that that has been played out by the U.S. in the last 4 years, and has that had any effect on the Canadian forces in terms of any kind of increased role that our forces have had to step up to?
So first and foremost, I have to understand the question. So truly, I'm difficult in hearing. So if I heard you correctly, you're talking about the states having a lesser role and what I feel about Canada's new role.
The U.S. has indicated they're going to step back from NATO, step back from some of the commitments they've made to across the globe. And has that made a change in the role that you see for the Canadian forces?
As a whole, I can't really comment. You know, what it comes down to is we will continue to serve as our government directs us to, right? That's what we do. Certainly what I can tell you is that the amount of work that reservists have done over the years has increased. And certainly to speak from a reserve perspective, when I first joined, 1983, it was 1983, in my unit, the 56th Field Regiment, there was 3 individuals with an overseas tour, 3 individuals with a medal, and it was an Egypt medal. And one was a 3 UN medals, one Egypt medal. Anyhow, when they served, they all were reduced in rank to go overseas. So they were serving as a sergeant, and when they were sent overseas, they went as a corporal, because that's the way the reserves were looked at. Currently, when we go overseas now, we go in our own current rank and sometimes higher rank, right? So the reserve force has a much different role that we play now. And partly, and in many ways, it's because of the number of postings and work that we have, right? The regular forces can't keep up. There's so much going on, so many places. They need the reserves to be able to step up and fulfill that role. I hope that kind of answers.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Colonel, you spoke about how well our unit, Owenstown and Barrie, serves the community. You have the opportunity here to speak to some of our business owners. What do you need from the community to support the unit? How can the community, business community, support?
Certainly, what we need, what I need certainly in both locations is people's participation. In other words, people's wanting to join the unit. You know, so whether it's friends, family, children, whatever, to recognize the benefit of what the foresters do, and as a whole, the primary reserve in Canada, right? It's a contributing thing. It's excellent for you, fitness, leadership skills, everything. I believe the business community appreciates when they have somebody from the military working within their ranks, because they do have organizational structure and discipline. But what we are missing, particularly here in Barrie and Owen Sound, is officers. We're very short on officers, and you know, that's why I'm standing here, is that there is not enough officers, so they had to bring me in from somewhere else to fill the role here. So we need that. Now, we do have officers coming in, but the issues that we have here in Barrie and in Owen Sound is that there are opportunities for full-time work as a reservist. And there's a lot of them here being based Borden, and a lot of them in Owen Sound being Meaford, right? So a lot of my staff end up going off to work full-time elsewhere, and that leaves a void within the unit. So speak to the unit, speak to the community, bring people, recommend them to join the unit. And that's really what we need most of, right? Is people to come in and serve. Yes.
When you say that you need people, you look at demographics, this is part of your party.
Oh, absolutely. You can sign up tomorrow. So no, thank you. From the business community, it's you're in the community, you have a much broader outreach. So it's your advocacy of the regiment is what I'm seeking from the majority of people here. But typically it's 18. You start off when you're 17, 18 years old. And the system is really designed best for university students. So basically they go to university during the year, you hit the May, June timeframe, and you're sent off to Gagetown, New Brunswick for 4 months. You come back, you go to school, back off to Gagetown. It's a really large commitment. You're looking at 2 to 3 years of 4 months commitment at the beginning, if you want to get qualified quickly. You can do it piecemeal, but that's when you have somebody who's my age who's still a captain. Right? You have to do it quickly to get qualified and to serve. But that's why it's really designed well for university or students, right? So it's the summer training when you go off to New Brunswick. CFB Gagetown, I don't want to say it's a beautiful base, but it's one of the largest training bases in the Commonwealth. I think it's 960 square miles, or it's huge. All the schools are there, all the combat arms schools are there, and that's where they do the majority of the training. So that's kind of the demographic we serve with. We do have some police officers who love to come in, want to serve, but it becomes very difficult because you're brand new on a police department. There's no way you're going to get summer vacation every year, right? So we really need somebody to come in before they start their career so that we can get that training done at the start, and then they can move on beyond that.
Reservists generally they're regular, I would say military trained, but regular people. They're just out to have a job. They go on the weekend or they go for a short period of time to take a military exercise or something. Are their jobs protected if they're called out for any length of time? Their laws protected?
Yeah, yes, they are. So certainly during the Afghan conflict, it was, I don't know what you call it, ratified in law, right? That our jobs are protected. That being said, right, an employer has the ability to argue to say, no, you can't go. So we have come across that where you have a small business that only has 5 employees. It's very hard for them to lose 1 or 2 people for up to a year, because our tours, depending on your rank level and what you're going to do, can run from 6 months to over a year, right? So if you're in country for 6 months, you're usually gone for almost a year, right? For workup training and then post-deployment training. So, but as a rule, your jobs are protected, and I'm glad that the government did that. We have to be aware and cognizant of it though, because you don't want to go in and say, yes, I would like a new job and I'm an Army reservist, and they say no, because they're worried about losing you to a deployment. So it has to be something managed. And there is an organization called the Canadian Forces Liaison Council, right? And it's a specific group that is meant to liaise with business and companies to make sure that kind of transition and that kind of help is out there.
I do have a question with, is there a physical aspect to getting into reserve, and is there a training aspect from a physical standpoint?
Yes. So in order to enroll in the Canadian Forces or the Army Reserve, both the same, you have to do what's called the CF fitness test, right? So it's specifically designed to model the activities that you may be asked to do. So it's lifting sandbags, shuttle runs, and that type of thing. So typically, the typical high school student would not have any issues with passing it, but you do have to do it, and you have to maintain that fitness. So I still do the same test now every year, because you have to maintain that fitness to meet what's called universality of service. So everybody in the service is trained as an infant tier first. So you have to be able to do that fitness test. You have to do your weapons drills, basic weapons drills every year to remain qualified and certified. Anyone else? Yes, Peter.
You said that it's quite a commitment for the university students, 4 months of the year, and other times when people are volunteering to go overseas and to be employed. The university students are still getting paid for that 4 months.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not a volunteer situation just because you're
Correct.
they're getting paid the grant and when they get employed, even though they volunteer, it's not a volunteer per se. They're getting paid to go over. They're just not being assigned.
Absolutely, and I would suggest that we get paid very well for what we do, right? I have no complaints about that, but there are different levels of service as well. There's what's called a Class A service, B service, and C. So Class A is what I am. I come in once a week, every other weekend, so on. Class B is a full-time reservist, right? Who works full-time but is paid as a reservist. And then there's Class C. So when you deploy overseas, you go on to what's called Class C service. Or in fact, when we posted everybody to Borden, they were on Class C service. And what that does is it provides additional benefits and security for somebody in the full-time service. Anything else?
I don't see anything on Zoomers. Zoomers, any other questions?
No, there aren't any at this time.
So again, if it does come up and if anybody is very interested or very specifically wants to know more about the history of the Gray and Simcoe Foresters, there is a museum downtown that I would recommend, take the time to walk through. They would love to see you, believe me, as much as I think you would love that visit. The Foresters do have a long history, and it is worth knowing, so I'm going to continue to learn it myself. But again, that's there if that's something that you would like to do, and I would encourage that.
Okay. Dave? Okay. I guess I should have this on. Make sure a distance. Oh, yes. Sorry, Jody. Yes. Coming up.
Lieutenant Colonel Meehan, thank you very much for being here today. On behalf of the club, it's an honor to thank you, and we very much appreciate it and learned certainly some more today about the Gray and Simcoe Foresters right here, literally in our backyard, and the important role that you play. You and I had a little chat beforehand, and you did explain a little bit to me of your long history of volunteerism and service, and again, we thank you for that. Honorary Lieutenant Colonel James and yourself, we thank you both on this day. It is an emotional day when we pay tribute and remember the soldiers that have fallen, that continue to serve, and we thank you for that commitment very much. It's certainly, watching the video clips that we had, is very evident that the calendar does not extinguish the emotion and pain of sacrifice. So there's nothing more than I can add today other than on behalf of the club, our city, and this country, thank you both very much for your commitment and service. Thank you.
do have a certificate of appreciation on behalf of our club for coming and speaking with us. It's coming up there on the screen. And for being our guest speaker, Rotary supports polio. And we are this close to ending polio. So in appreciation of you coming to speak with us today, we have donated 10 Polio Plus vaccinations in your name, as well as Rotary's Polio Resource Center is helping the fight against COVID-19 and supporting the preparedness and response activities in many countries. A contribution towards the COVID-19 efforts have also been made in your name. So thank you very much. I'll just get my mask on here. Yeah.
This one. Cheers. Okay.
We had two come.
Oh, I see it. And that's very cool. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Mask.
So we do have a few announcements. So we have district conference. I'll take this off. Ooh. Okay, so we do have district conference, which is this weekend, both Saturday and Sunday, from 9 until noon. The agenda is up on the screen. It is free, so please, if you have some time, even to listen in, you're doing some work around, put the ear pods in and catch some of these presentations through the district. Todd, are you coming up for an auction?
Sure.
And then we'll also have Dave get ready.
Thank you, President Deb, distinguished guests, fellow Rotarians, ye who Zoom. I wanted to just give a quick update on the auction, which is underway now. We have, I think the number's up to 427 items up for auction with a total value of $42,000 roughly. So we're well underway. I wanted to extend a great big thank you to all the canvas captains on each committee who rallied the troops. Also to every Rotarian that either solicited or donated an item, which, we got 427 of them, so that's great. The team that really helped out, I'd like to thank as well, Craig Graham for inputting some items, for accepting items at his shop, for organizing and running the pre-auction last week, which actually raised us $1,415, which is a great start. To seasoned auction Chairman Bill Forster, thank you very much for helping to input the items. John Laking also, who was the canvas boss, and also helped in inputting and proofreading the items. My two sons, Mitchell, who helped inputting a bunch of the items, and Lyndon, who processed the reorganization of them into the 4 blocks. So we've got 4 blocks of items that will all be declared sold at various times from the 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock hour on Sunday the 15th. So looking forward to great participation and bidding. I checked just before lunch. We've already got $8,000 and change of bids in. So we're off to a great start. Thank you, President Deb.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Deb. President Debbie, honored military guests, fellow Rotarians, spouses, friends of Rotary, and Zoomers. For those of you who are new to Rotary, November is Rotary Foundation Month, International Rotary Foundation Month. And I wanted to just clarify that this is totally different from the Rotary Charitable Foundation, which is run or chaired at the present time by Arlette Hutton. So it's totally different foundations that we're talking about here. So this is generally the month that our club makes its donations to the Rotary Foundation. When you give a donation to the Rotary Foundation, this provides you with Paul Harris recognition points which go towards achieving your first Paul Harris recognition or getting you set up for multiple Paul Harris recognition. In order to get a Paul Harris award or recognition, you need to donate $1,000 US to achieve this. This can be done as one single donation, or it can be done over many years. Some people might take 10 or 12 years to get their first Paul Harris by just donating $100 a year or something along that lines. President Debbie has, I believe, set some very realistic goals for our club this year. Our goals are that we want to provide the annual fund with about $2,500 and the Polio Plus COVID fund with about $12,000. And I think these goals can be readily achieved. This year, it's going to be kind of difficult with COVID, so I think the easiest way either is to either mail a check to my address and I'll take care of the donation from there, or you can go online to the Rotary Foundation Canada and make a donation online. As you go through the online version, you will come to a page that will ask you where you want to direct your donation, and I would encourage you to either go to the annual fund. The annual fund is a way in which Rotary gives back to our districts. If you donate to the annual fund, your monies will go into an investment for 3 years. And at the end of that 3 years, the interest from that investment is returned to the district. And the district can then use it for world grants or for district designated grants. Or you can give it to Polio Plus. So either one of those two, you will get Paul Harris recognition points for it. If you give it to something else, you will not or may not get Paul recognition points for your donation. If you donate online, I would ask that you please send me a quick email just to let me know the amount you donated and where you directed your donation. I want to assure you that all donations are kept strictly confidential, so nobody else will know how much you donated except for me at the present time, or whoever's chairing the Rotary Foundation. As I've said in the past, it doesn't matter how much you donate, just that you do. The Rotary Foundation was initiated by Rotarians and is made for Rotarians. And it would be a nice gesture on all of our parts, I think, to give President Debbie the honor of probably being the first president who ever gets a 100% participation from our club. One thing I want to bring up is that if you think about what's happening right now with COVID, none of us are being charged for our meals. So why don't you just donate the cost of one of your meals to Rotary Foundation? Costs next to nothing to do that. And it will go a long way to giving us maybe 100% participation this year. If you have any questions, concerns regarding donations to the Rotary Foundation, never ever hesitate to call me or contact me in any way, shape, or form. Thank you.
You want me to play the video, Deb?
What was that? I didn't hear the question. Yeah, I think we'll wait for next week for that.
Okay.
And I do have one more announcement. From Brian Galbraith, he couldn't be online right now. So his announcement is we need more Santas. Let's see. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with what Brian Galbraith is trying to do is to put a Santa event together where online kids can sign up and talk with Santa. They can't go to the mall now and sit on Santa's lap or do that type of thing this year. So the effort is to have a number of Santas that can donate a bit of time, be on Zoom, and then talk to the kids and have a one-on-one with the kids for 10 minutes. There'll be some training, there'll be some scripting to help you through, but I think once you get into it, I think it'd be a lot of fun and quite a memorable time to actually talk to Santa. But he is in need of Santas. They have 3 Santas so far, hopefully for another 3. And then pretty much you need a Santa outfit. Sure, there's some ways that we can all help. We all have resources, some good internet, and some time. And of course, they will be trained on Zoom and how to use it. So we've got that as well. So that's a great initiative that Brian is pulling together for everyone. So we have President Deb's Stronger Together, Together Inspired moment. On this day, when we honor those who have fought for our country and our freedom, Remembrance Day isn't just about war and those we've lost, but about ideals and what we stand for. It's about respecting our past and looking hopefully forward, and more than anything, thanking those who have served. Truly an amazing, together inspired moment. Having no other business, I declare this meeting adjourned. Have a great afternoon. Hey, Zoomers.